What's going on, everyone? Welcome to The Innovative Seller. This is going to be your go-to show to learn what's new, what's interesting in the world of sales and technology. Every single week, we're going to be bringing you interviews with some of the most forward-thinking thought leaders in the space. You get a chance to ask me questions in our Q&A section, and I'll break down the top trends in sales processes and technology every single show. So sit back and let's get into it. Welcome everyone to the very first Innovative Seller Show. Thank you so much for joining me. I am really excited about this series to bring to you all the different innovation and conversations I have every week to your ears and your eyes every single show. This week, we've got process trends where we are talking about, do I need to invest in a brand new sales playbook, or can I make some spot improvements and 2x revenue? We're going to talk about technology trends. You know my favorite topic, ChatGPT. We're going to have an interview with two of my absolute favorite sales leaders, Mr. Kevin Dorsey, Mr. Scott Leese. So sit back and let's get into it. All right, it is that time of year, my friends, where we start to think about next year and we say, okay, what are we going to do that's new, interesting, different? We've got our sales kickoffs. We got to get everyone fired up. My top trend for 2024 and the sales process is don't overinvest in these big $500,000 playbooks and think that it's going to solve your 2023 revenue challenges. My friends, I have seen this over and over again, where organizations are struggling. Maybe the close rates aren't where they want them to be. Maybe we want our conversion rates to improve. And so what do? We say, oh, I know I've got the solution. We're gonna go and do this massive overhaul of our entire sales process. The issue is, typically, it's not the entire process that needs to be overhauled. There are typically two, and as you think about 2024, I'm gonna give them to you right now, two process changes that if your organization just makes sure that you can track those changes will have the absolute biggest impact for your org. Number one is one of my favorite ones. It is your sales cycle. And I'm gonna get real granular here. Many of you might know your sales cycle. You're like, Jake, our sales cycle's 3 months, it's 6 months, it's 24 days. I don't know what your sales cycle is. But the biggest problem is this, and I've witnessed this firsthand with sales organizations out of 1,000 plus people, is what ends up happening is when you look at this number in aggregate and you say, okay, our average is X. But then what happens is you zoom in and you see what those numbers look like at the rep level, at the manager level, at the regional level. If you don't understand the average time in each stage, how can you fix your sales cycle? So instead of thinking of the sales cycle that's 3 months, the best of the best organizations know stage 1 is 12 days. Stage 2 is 30 days. Stage 3 is 15 days. And what they then do, instead of trying to do this big overhaul, is they say, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna improve step 2. And if we improve step 2, that's gonna decrease our sales cycle by nearly 20-30%. So again, don't think you have to go to this big change to impact your sales cycle. And that goes to number 2, which is your conversion percentage by each stage. These two different metrics are metrics that consistently we see teams are just not tracking. Again, what percentage of our people go from step 3 to step 4? And how does that differ? Why is Luke doing so well? Why is Jessica doing so well? And can we just replicate what they're doing? That move people from step 2 to step 3 and then a higher percent from 3 to 4? So my friends, as you think about your 2024 plans, you think about what you need to do that's different. Do not think that this Hail Mary big investment is the answer. Instead, those two metrics are what will move the needle. That is my Process Trends episode 1. Tune in next week, and I'm gonna talk about customized customer journeys, which is the future of B2B sales in 2024. All right, what's going on, fellas?
What's up, man?
Man, I've got two legends right here. I've got, how many times have you been a sales leader? 6?
Me? 6.
6? What are you at?
5.
5?
5, yeah.
Investor?
Yeah, a few times. Yeah.
Few-time investor?
Yeah.
Man, keynote speaker? Scott Leese?
He's got me beat on that, I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got you on that one, yeah.
And he called it out, too. He's like, I've got him on it. Well, thanks, guys, for joining me, man. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah,
Scott Leese, Kevin Dorsey, everybody. If you all don't know, if you follow my content, chances are you probably follow theirs. Not so much vice versa. You probably follow them and, like, maybe me. Maybe. I don't know.
Ooh, we'll have to do this at the end. We should do a connection overlap. I'm curious.
How many connection overlaps?
Like what's the highest?
I'll probably be disappointed if I'm being honest.
It tends to be less than we realize. Like,
right.
I mean, we're all at like that almost 30K cap, and I bet neither of us have more than 5,000 overlap.
It's 5,000 out of 100,000. Something.
I think not much. 5. We can do it. We'll show.
Yeah, we're gonna see. I'm just curious.
You're gonna see it on the screen. We're gonna put up next to it overlap. All right, so we're gonna talk sales. Obviously, I mean, we could talk like entrepreneurship, laundromats, pictures. We can talk whatever you guys want. But look, you guys are both out there talking to different, running sales orgs, being a part of running sales orgs. 2023 has been interesting. It's been, there's so many different trends. Really, we saw the rise of generative AI and everything. But I think I'm curious for you two, what are like the big trends you're seeing around sales process today? Like when you think about this year, have you guys seen shifts in sales process? And do you think companies are starting to look at the way that we interact with customers different, or is it still 1996?
I think what we're seeing is it's actually the same process. People are just trying to do more of it. Like they're just hoping that, okay, well, if 10 automated emails wasn't enough, they're like, okay, the process isn't broken. We just need to do more of it. So now it's like 50 automated emails, 100 automated emails. It really feels like the sales process has not changed. People are just trying to do more of it right now to try to make up the gap, which is only making things worse.
I don't know if I fully agree.
You and I, we don't fully agree.
Let's
go.
It's not that I agree with what you said, but also
wait, time out. You can end there.
No, yeah.
Yes, you can end there.
they know it's better than that.
Yeah,
but there's a little bit of a decline, I think, in the sort of silo like SDR, AE, SE kind of thing, and a little bit of a return to 1996 where there's more full cycle sellers. So from that perspective, I think people are thinking about how people buy, and they're like, you know what? That's not necessarily the most buyer-friendly experience to get passed from one person to the next to the next. And is it actually the best use of our time as a company as well? Is it elongating a sales cycle? So there's a little bit of that stuff, I think. And then I also think this referral channel, nearbound kind of go-to-network kind of channel, nobody was talking about this in 2022. And I think it's been, kind of climbing up the ranks. And so in addition to sending more emails or making more calls or whatever, people are like, well, I know Jake and Jake knows KD and I want to talk to KD. So let me ask Jake if he can make an intro. And so that's a change, I think, in process. So those would be my
So I'm gonna disagree with your disagreement with the agreement.
We're just gonna argue all day.
Because that's where it gets dicey.
I think we're gonna get into this in the innovation side of it, because I agree with what you're saying. I don't think it's prevalent at all. Like, I think nearbound is like that. The way I'm approaching, like what I'm actually seeing out there, nearbound needs to happen. Referral needs to happen. Yeah. The return to full cycle, I haven't heard many people describe it in a way that they're thinking about the buyer when they're doing it. Most of them are looking at cutting costs with in terms of efficiency. So it's like, that's how I'm looking at it. It's like, what's actually seeming to happen out there. It doesn't feel like much has
is better for the
changed.
customer.
It 100% agree.
Like
100%.
Again, the handoff process and just people just not paying any attention, incentives not aligned, it fixes so much. But I'm similar, I think. But more people are doing it. More and more AEs are at least doing part of a full cycle. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm seeing, is that at least part of their job is prospecting. As a part of it. And it's funny, you talk about referrals too, like that's also back to 1996.
Yeah,
it's like
sure.
When you're a full cycle rep, you're like, I remember I went to this sports trainer, this guy, Charles Shishlagi, and like his big thing is like, who are the two people that you know? And like, that was just a part of sales, right? It was like getting referrals, generating referrals. So it is kind of interesting. We are seeing this somewhat of a return, whether it's all the way there, whether it's for cost or the customer experience. I think it's better for customers.
Mm-hmm. It's got maybe a little bit of a new name to fit,
it can't be full cycle
or whatever.
That's almost like demeaning. It can't be like it's like full cycle. Oh, because you know how to do everything.
Yeah,
that's a bad thing in somewhere. Yeah, weird.
That's how I started. I'm sure you guys. What about sales tech? Right, like this year for me is I think the year of consolidation. You saw everybody get up in everyone else's business. Everyone is now engagement, data, and platform insights. Right, and I feel like man, the buying cycle right now, as we look at, when that Q4 hits for all these companies into January, Outreach, Sales Loft, Zoom Info, Gong, Clary acquired Groove, right? That was the thing.
Yep.
Apollo raised $100 million. Again, like we saw 2021 was this, everyone just bought. There's all that money and they bought all these tools. These companies got ridiculous valuations. What are your clients coming to you with? Like, what are you hearing in the market in terms of this consolidation? It's a lot. I hear a lot of confusion. But what are you all hearing?
Yeah. I mean, at any point in time, I have like a dozen clients who are asking me this exact same thing. And what they say to me all the time is, what do I absolutely have to have that I can't exist without? And, you recommend a few things or you say a few things and they're like, okay, great. Now I can only afford like one of those. So they're like, what is the one thing or two things at most that I have to buy that I, can't get away with not using? And then they are confused. That was a good description, because they're like, how do I choose between this, that, and the other? Because it seems like they all do the same exact thing now. Whereas before, Gong was different than Outreach or whatever. Now it's like all one kind of thing, right? So I think that we got over too much tech, too much tools. We like involved all of this stuff and tried to process and automate the hell out of everything. And I don't think people want to engage that way anymore from a founder perspective. And then the sales leaders that you talk to, they feel the same way.
Yeah.
And then the RevOps leader is like, sweet, I don't have to manage a suite of like 14 different tools. I can just manage one. Okay, let's see what happens. So you talk about what's going to happen in the Q4, like what are people going to be buying and everything? I'm thinking to myself, nothing. And that's kind of scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, they're going to go from spending $1,000 a month per rep to $100.
But the sectors to me that stuff is still getting bought is not the like tech B2B SaaS stuff. It's businesses that are kind of away from that shine, that are slower to adopt all this kind of thing, right? I mean, you work with accountants, right? Well, accountants have historically not used all this kind of tech. I've done a lot of work in like real estate and insurance and these kind of markets, right?
It's the non-sexy SaaS.
Yeah,
that's where I love to live, is like out of that.
Yeah, those are the industries and sectors that this stuff I think still has room to grow and expand.
Yeah. When I'm looking at my budget for next year, I'm almost looking at it the other way. It's like the big boys have consolidated, right? Outreach adds all these things. Sales Loft, like the big companies have added things in to try to be the central hub. But what I'm seeing with my own orgs and the companies I'm talking to is there's enough now smaller versions out there that are cheaper to replace it. So like when I'm not looking to buy a huge hub. I'm like, I need this very specific thing solved. And because software is getting so easy to build and there's so many options out there, I can find better versions or similar versions for less. I'm almost looking at like, I don't know, deconsolidating. I don't know if that's like the word not. It's like, I know what use case I want for these tools, and there's smaller, cheaper options out there now I can go get to fill that spot. I don't necessarily need or want one massive tool that I'm spending $200 plus per month per headcount on to only get 40%.
You want an a la carte option where you just pull
it's like I need this.
Well, that's all they're using anyway, right? Like if you look at these tools, we see it. Our clients, when we come in, they're maybe using 30%, 20% of what these tools can do. That I think when I see this, we talk to people again about outreach or something. They're like, they're still just using it for like this use case. They're not using half these automations and APIs and things they put in the background, and so. That's where, I get it. You're like, yeah, these things would be nice, but am I going to look at this data tool? Is it really giving me like insights, yes or no? Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think for me, it's you have to do the review. And then the other piece is don't buy tech if you're not going to implement it correctly. And that's what we see all the time. It's like, it wasn't the tech's fault. And then you think switching to someone else is going to solve the problem. But then you still want it to go live yesterday. And then you wonder why like you only deploy 20%. So that's my advice is like, if you're thinking about this tech, just double to triple the expectations of what you think it's going to take to get it live. And then you'll at least probably see higher better results from it.
And you need a resource, whether that's an internal resource or an external resource. Somebody's got
like Scaled Consulting, maybe.
There you go.
Is that it? Okay,
somebody's got to help.
There we go.
You know,
I like it. All right. So what about behaviors we've seen that that you continue to see orgs? We were joking about a little bit, Scott. Like, what are some of the mistakes that you feel like we got to stop this? Like, what are some of this, whether it's CEOs, sales leaders, like what are some of the things where we're like, I can't believe that this is still happening in 2023?
Oh, brother, we would be here all day just talking about this one. You want to go first?
No, I don't want to go first on that.
I'm just going to rattle off ones that happened to me inside the last 72 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Over-optimizing for industry expertise.
Oh,
as opposed,
totally.
to sales and leadership acumen, right? It's like, I'm going to hire this person who comes with this Rolodex.
Oh, they got that Rolodex.
That's going to last real good for 3 months.
Do you even know what a Rolodex is anymore?
No, but
I don't think most people know what
I don't even know what a Rolodex is.
The amount of times I still hear that is mind-blowing to me.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of times that sales leaders come to me and message me about how they're being treated. Like, my goal got jacked up to this. I just got threatened to get fired if this doesn't happen. I just got, 90% of my budget ripped away and I'm expected to grow by $90 billion next year. And that's not even counting actual kind of abuses of power or systemic things that are just lying, cheating, not paying commissions or whatever. All of this stuff. I look at my inbox on LinkedIn every day and I'm like, Jesus Christ, how is all this stuff still happening? What is going on, right? That kind of stuff is just mind-blowing to me in this day and age of transparency. This just happened the other day. This guy got, he went kind of viral. He talked about his experience. I think this poor guy's wife is sick with cancer or something like that. And he asked if he could relocate and continue to work, by the way, so she could be closer to this treatment center. And they fired him. And do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And then it was blew up for 3 or 4 days. And then the company had to issue this massive, contraction and change their tune and everything. I'm just how the is this still happening?
Yeah.
How are you still making that level of egregious error right now?
My biggest one, and it plays into that, it's just the companies are still being run off spreadsheets.
Oh,
if it works in the spreadsheet, that person was a line in the spreadsheet. It was that $85,000 line in the spreadsheet. That $90 billion target. Well, we only changed this cell, and this cell, and it seemed to work out.
The math works now.
Yeah, we bumped up your ACV by about 20% because we're going to raise prices. We increased your close rates because you better be getting better year over year and such. So it always works in the spreadsheet. That's the thing that just I think still drives me nuts because you have people not hitting numbers that aren't meant to be hit. It's it's not even meant to be hit. Right? It's a made up number. It wasn't based off reality. And I think that's the biggest one that gets companies in troubles, VPs in trouble, CEOs in trouble. It's it always works when there's no human element. It always works in the spreadsheet. But the moment humans have to get involved to get better, to change pricing, to roll it out, it takes time, right? It's my post, I think, literally today of we're so addicted to speed still in tech. It's speed over everything else that forces VPs out early, that forces people to be oh, well, we need to grow by this much, so we have to grow by that much. All right, we got to cut that line. That's $80,000 that we don't want to pay now. It's that sort of stuff where it's just running based off the math without the realization that people got to do this.
Nobody does the work. Another thing that is broken still, I can't believe people are doing, founders don't actually ever try to sell the product. I don't know if you experience this, and arguably even worse than that is when they bring in a head of sales, that head of sales doesn't try to sell the product at all. And so the first people who are actually having to sell the product and try to hit this quoted number that they plucked from thin air is a salesperson, an account executive, or maybe an SDR. And they're expected to hit this number that nobody's ever even come close to because a founder or a sales leader has never, they haven't even got close to it. They've never done it at all, right? Oh, man.
The lack of training is the other big one to me.
There you go. There's another one.
It's so systemic.
Well, it's getting worse. I feel the training, both for leaders, there is no such thing as leadership training in most tech companies, which is crazy. But there's the lack of we're expecting you to hit these ever-growing numbers, and our onboarding is now this, and you're supposed to ramp here. To your point, nobody's ever done it before. Why? It's obviously unrealistic. And Kevin, you and I were actually talking about this on Friday a little bit. I also feel like leaders have to advocate for themselves more. I feel like sometimes, like, yes, someone can tell you what to do too, but I do feel like maybe people feel like they have to. So like, okay, yeah, if I got to do this in 6 months, whereas before, like I remember on my first sales leadership job, I'm like, look, here's what's going to happen this year. I got to rebuild this team. This is what we're going to do. And here's the leading indicators of what success is going to look like. This is where my team's going to be in 6 months. And so I do feel like there's, you can try it. Not that they'll listen necessarily, but there's this kind of weird condensing of time frames that are completely unrealistic and expectations, and it's hard.
But you have to be able to do that.
You have to.
You have to. Yeah. And candidly, I don't think I did that the first couple times I was a sales leader, whether it was ego or fear and intimidation or whatever, or just like ignorance, like, oh wait, you can actually push back. The first couple VP of sales gigs I had, you tell me to jump and I'm like, how high? Okay, I guess I'll figure out how to, right? You can't exist that way at all. And so at some point in time, experience kicks in or confidence kicks in and you're like, hold up. And you have to be able to push back.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to, not just to like save yourself, but for the benefit of the whole company as well. And everybody that is working there, you have to be able to have difficult conversations with founders and the like, and be like, yo, this number makes no sense, and here's what we're going to do. I did that. The last time I was a SVP of sales, they wanted me to put together a forecast for the upcoming year. We'd never sold anything before, by the way.
Good start.
Like, build a forecast.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, here's my theoretical thing that I think we're going to do. And it was way less than they wanted, right? And I'm like, well, do you want me to put a number there that you like, or do you want me to put a number there that I'm willing to stick my head in the guillotine for? Because this number I just gave you is fucking terrifying to me, even though you hate it, and my head is in the guillotine, and I'll take it. And I got like 96% accuracy for the next year.
Yeah.
And I remember the founder coming back to me and saying, I'm really glad that you fought me on that, because it helped us like plan for the year, and we would have been in deep if you would have just said yes.
Yeah, exactly. And overcommitted.
People don't do that.
With my finance team at my last company, it was a similar situation happening. We've been fighting over this for like 3 months, and I've taken every angle to try to like convey that what they were presenting was not possible. It's 2 weeks before it had to be finalized. I said, y'all, are you willing to bet me your equity on this plan? Are you willing to put your equity on the table right now? It says that we will hit this plan. Like, are you willing to do that? And they're like, well. I was like, that pause is everything you needed to know, because that's what you're asking myself and this company to do with this plan, is you're asking us to bet our equity on this. Yeah. We're not going to hit this, right? So if you had to put on the table, we hit this, we double your equity, or we miss it, we take it all away.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Right. It was finally the thing that clicked, because I had tried 3-4 other ways of like trying to convey that this plan was not hittable, and it was like flipping it, say, then bet me your equity.
Yeah.
We'll put it on the table right now. All right. If you wouldn't bet your equity, we hit this plan, then we can't do this. Right. So
What about reps? The same advice, right? I mean, all of us were probably, I'm not going to say we were probably difficult reps, but I would guess we were all pushed the status quo at some point. If you're a rep and you're in this situation, right? You're in a situation where I was just literally on the phone with a woman who works at a tech company, most of you will know. And, I've got to make X number of calls. It's not converting. And look, I've always given advice of like, look, I will do it your way here, but I want to do this amount of experimentation. And if we do it my way after 3 weeks and I do it your way too, I still will hit my minimums. Are you open to me doing some slight adjustments? I'm still going to hit your numbers, and I'm going to do more. And that's a strategy I used, and it worked. But I also feel like, again, reps don't know sometimes, right? They're sold a bill of goods from someone who's was sold a bill of goods and down. What can reps do in a time like right now where, it doesn't feel fair maybe, and, maybe work hard just isn't the answer?
So like so many things in life, to me, it depends on what they are actually doing. I have seen far more reps fail because they're not doing what they're supposed to do than reps doing what they're supposed to do and not being able to to get there. Because if you are doing what you're being asked to do and it's not working, you actually have a much stronger leg to stand on. You can literally prove what you're asking to be done isn't working, and you can show it, but you have to commit it. I tell it to my team all the time, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. If you do what I'm asking for and it doesn't work, perfect. Then we know it doesn't work and we can make a change. But if we don't do it, we can't complain about it. We can't make an adjustment. So it's like, if you're in a situation like that, one, prove it. Like, prove that it's not working. You have to be consistent. It's not like you hit your dials one day or like you loaded up some accounts one day. Like, give it a good 90 days of like actually doing it. But then to your point, bring that to the table. And, I guess it is kind of asking for permission, but it's asking to do extra. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to stop doing all those things. Like, I'll continue to do this, but could I try this? I'd like to try something else, right? Because the question I ask my team all the time, IIW, probably at least once a week this gets brought up. Is it working? No, KD, we did, we didn't call the leads before the Calendly invite, but we texted them. IIW.
Yeah.
IIW. What's our show rate right now?
Yeah.
45% on those. Is it working? No, we have to change something. If it is, keep doing it. So that'd be like the first point. I want your take on this, Scott. But like, one, make sure you are doing what is being asked of you and getting good at it. And then if it's not, ask for the permission to make changes, because you can prove it's not getting the result that you need it to get.
I think they need to be taught how to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think people in leadership roles teach their reps how the rep should appropriately push back.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right? I think we just spend time thinking like, well, just do what I said because I'm the leader.
That's right.
Or the rep comes and it's just like, I'm not going to do what you said. I'm going to do this.
I think
this
way.
Yeah. And they think they're right. It's like, okay, but if somebody comes to you intelligently and articulately, like you were saying, okay, I'm going to hit this numbers that you want. I'm going to do it this way, the way that you want. On top of that, I'm going to spend X number of hours or cycles, doing it this other way. And are you open to looking at the results after that? And if the results skew a particular direction, are you open to us leaning a little bit more into that? It's difficult for me to imagine sales leaders who would not take that well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm sure there's some that wouldn't take it well, unfortunately, but any sales leader who's good and mature enough to handle that level of like conversation would love that. I think.
I was talking, well, it's funny though, because leaders are just as bad at this on the flip side too, where I was talking with a company 2 weeks ago and they're like, our top 2 performers, like they don't follow best practices at all. And I said, I want you to say that very slowly. Like I want you to say that back to me. Your top performers aren't following best practices. And I made them say it back. And I was like, do you get what I'm saying?
Like, did
it click? Like, are you with me yet? It's like, do I get rid of them? No. Okay. No.
For a second, I was gonna say,
no.
Come on. Let's keep talking this out.
Do you know what they do differently? Because that is the best practice.
Right.
Like, you are picking the complete wrong battle right now of trying to get them to conform to a playbook when you should be building the playbook off of them and what they are doing. Leaders are bad at that sometimes, or they'll pick the wrong fights. Of like, we study greatness once a quarter. So once a quarter, we do what's called a studying greatness exercise, where we go metric by metric, identify who's the top performer in that metric, and can we greatness diagnose. So often we just focus on issue diagnosis, like what's wrong. We're going to sit down and go, okay, what is this rep doing better? What are they doing differently than everybody else? And then that becomes the updated playbook. It's like, oh, Julia presents pricing like this. She has the highest ACV. This is the difference. That playbook just got updated. Now Julia can help lead the training and go through it. But reps and leaders right now need to be looking at what is working. This is one thing that I don't see called out on LinkedIn anywhere, is like the number of quota attainments going down. Was it like 40% now?
No, it's less than that. It's like 24% or something like that. 24 to 30%.
24, like 38, 24. It's like we see these numbers, right? People like, even like 40, only 40% of reps are hitting quota right now. And I go, okay, but 40% are hitting. What are they doing differently? Like, do you know what they're doing differently? That I don't feel like it's talked about enough. Is if you have 40%, like, you know, there are so many other places in life where if I said you have 40% odds, you would play that game all goddamn day.
Yeah, sure.
You got 40% odds of success here to make 200, 300, 400K in a year. You got a 40%
You'd go to Vegas with those odds.
All day long. Why is no one talking about, well, what are the 40% doing differently, and how well are you trying to acclimate that? Sometimes it can be territory, sometimes it can be experience. Like, there's things to look at, but I don't think people are giving the 40% enough credit right now either, of like, they're doing something different. Study them, like really break that down.
Do you think it's, I mean, my hot take is they are doing things that are personalized and a little different, and I just see a lot of leaders gravitating toward, and again, I've talked about this, scalable and automated are not the same word. That we've turned them into the same word. Mm-hmm. That if my teams aren't doing things that are automated, if we can't do more, you hit on this, and you know, that's what my hunch is. Like, I bet if I looked at these 40%, they're doing that weird little custom. They're doing a little custom thing here. They're doing a little one here. They're doing a little here, and leaders are like, yeah, I know, but it's not our best practice.
Right. It's not.
I think we will start to go back to this, away from this more is the answer mindset, just because like the data is just so glaring that this strategy isn't working. But I wonder if that's it. If it's just, you know.
Well, some of the things, I think the assumption is that they can't be replicated. So you look at, there's some of these reps that you see who kind of, their race to President's Club is in public or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those, you know, the kind of reps that I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, I'm looking over there and they're like, okay, well, this gal's got 50,000 followers. This one has 100,000 followers. And you could tell that part of their strategy is their personal brand. And it's just like, not directly social selling, but like they've turned themselves into a demand gen content function for, you know, awareness, meetings, closing deals, all this kind of stuff. So some of the 40% who are hitting quota are those people. And some of the 60% who are not are people who have no presence whatsoever online. And it would take years of investment and time to get even near where some of those people are. So I hear some sales leaders and sales reps say like, well, you know, we don't have those reps, so what am I supposed to do? And to your point, I'm like, well, why don't you go hire them?
Yeah.
Because if those are the 40% that are hitting, then there's your answer.
But they're not, though. That's the 1%. That's the 1%.
The 1% of the 40?
Yes. Like, right, we could. We're not doing it for this. Right now, we could name who most of these people are, right? There's maybe, if I think about the industry, I'll give tops of like 40 reps with brands that is helping them hit their number at their company. Like I'd put it below 40 potentially.
Being famous,
right?
I want
you know, like actually selling for their company.
I think it's a little higher than that.
Okay, how high? Want to go hundo?
No. Certainly not.
Then we'll go 70.
I'm not betting my equity.
Yeah, not bet your equity.
Let's put it that way.
So, but that's actually the point. Like, so maybe let's say even if it was 100.
Yeah.
How many SaaS sellers are there in the U.S. right now in EMEA? Right, we're talking about 40 something.
Yeah, but they're all selling sales tech. That's kind of the point.
That's the other
like, well, that's what I'm saying.
Like, do you want to be famous? Like, if I look, but that's fine. Then that's what you should do. You should go out and put a bunch of sales stuff. But if you're selling to HR leaders, why do you like? Those are the people. Those are the not hitting quotas. That they're selling to HR leaders and finance leaders, and yet you want to be sales famous.
Right. Yeah. That's different to me. It's like, it's not, there are very few reps that I think their brands are helping them hit their company quotas. I think there's a lot of reps out there that are building brands. They're making income off it, which I support. I love it. 100%. But I think it's a very small subset that are actually getting to their company numbers off their brand. That is not repeatable for most. That 40%, there's things that they are doing differently. And that is why I'm so maniacal on behaviors and skill and language and words. Because I believe, you know, we'll see how y'all say, I believe any skill can be taught within 80%.
Oh yeah,
within 80%, right? I can't replicate a Scott Leese, but give me 3 months of observing you, I can find the 80% that is replicatable, and I can teach that, and I can coach that, and I can put a system around that. I can't make everyone 100% like the best
A+, but I can build an army of B players.
100%. I can learn what the best do differently, because it always shows up in behaviors in some way. When someone says, "Oh, they're more confident," that shows up in a behavior. I can find it. Oh, they have more experience. Well, it's probably going to show up in how they handle the objections, the stories they tell, and how they present. I can find the behaviors attached to what the best do, and you can teach that. Never to 100, but to 80%, you can teach it.
The best have also found a way to pick the right horse to bet on.
Mm-hmm. That's part of it, 100%.
Part of the failure is there was a lot of companies that got founded.
Ooh. Okay, hold
selling
on.
to other companies.
So Scott,
Jake's company is trying to sell to KD's company, and I know one specific example I can think of where there was like an agreement, like I'll buy your if you buy mine, and we'll both get a deal off of it. It's like nobody's going to hit numbers at those kind of companies.
I'm curious. You're involved with the company. I won't say the company here, but I'm just curious on the company.
Is he about to blame me for the?
No. I want the number behind it.
To me on the side.
You know, the 40% that are hitting. I wonder what percentage of companies that's from, though, or if the majority of those 40% are coming from the 20%. Like, you know, to your point, like picking the right ride or whatever. If like 80% of the reps at certain companies are hitting quotas, that's 80% of that company. I'll just be curious.
So if the total companies is lower.
Right, because like 40% across the board, my guess is there's even chunks within that of like...
I don't think 40%. I think if we grab 10 companies off the street right now, 4 of them hitting their goals, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, it's probably
I think it's lower.
Yes, that's to your point, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I looked at it just like this morning talking with someone else. It showed like 38 or something like that for rep view. Like that's what it showed there was quota attainment. But I'm just thinking now, I'm like, that's rep attainment. I wonder how that dispersion looks across the graph of like, you know, if really most of that 40% is coming.
15% of companies and 40% of reps, of which, you know, 20% from the 10%
clustered together.
That's right. That are all just liking
Scaled Consulting.
Yes.
There you go. Scaled Consulting. All right. In this week's tech trends, I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about ChatGPT, because every single week there's a new release. And for those of you, again, who aren't following this as closely as I am, you know, literally in the last month, there's been some big ones. There's now the ability to upload PDFs, large files, images. If you weren't aware, ChatGPT was only indexing data up until September of 2021. It's now caught up to April of 2023. You can now surf the internet with Bing and go and look up different articles. So ChatGPT is evolving faster than any technology that we've seen in the revenue organization ever. All right. And I think when I talk to a lot of sales leaders and CEOs, it really feels like I'm having conversations like what people might have had in 1996 when they're trying to explain the power of the internet, right? A lot of what I see is doom and gloom and security and what if our data gets out? And here's what I can promise you. The same way as the answer was always, yes, it is better to have the internet than, oh my gosh, what if someone goes to Pornhub or some other site, is going to be exactly what you are going to say about ChatGPT in 2024. So what I'm going to try to do is give you 2 use cases, just 2, for all my revenue leaders out there that are like, Jake, I want to get started. I'm not 100% sure. You know, so maybe you're a little paralyzed. So I'm going to break it down for you. Number 1 is personalization and prep. Okay. With these releases that I talked about, okay, I can go to a company's annual report. I can upload the annual report and say, I work at this company, abc.com. I'm trying to book a meeting with this company, and here's their annual report. Based on the things that they are talking about, what are 2 reasons they'd want to take a meeting with me based on my product set? So you can do a level of personalization. It used to take me 2 or 3 hours worth of research to think about, okay, what does this company do? What is that, you know, what does that division do? And how can I book a meeting? Now, by using a combination of links and PDFs, I can literally summarize all this information and do personalization at the company level. And then at the individual level, I can copy and paste in someone's LinkedIn profile. I can save their page as a PDF. I can upload that. So I can say, hey, I'm trying to get a meeting with abc.com. Here's the annual report. Here's the person I want to get a meeting with. Based on these triangulations, what are 2 or 3 value props that they would care about, the company cares about, that we can solve for? So personalization and prep, I cannot tell you, is something that we've been waiting for a long time. There's been a lot of different promises around, speeding things up, etc. But now you truly can do personalization at scale, which has been this kind of magic bullet we've been looking for. Number 2 is onboarding and training. You can, again, using the same strategies I talked about, I can put a copy and paste link of all your different products and say, create a 15-question trivia game. I'm a brand new salesperson here to help me to get better up to speed on my own products. Now, here's a link to my competitions page and what they say they do that's different. Create a 10-question trivia game to help me get up to speed on what we do that's different. Right? I can then have it train me on the personas. Maybe I'm selling into HR and I've sold into finance in the past. Again, I can say, hey, great, what are the trends for a CHRO in industrial manufacturing? Right? Okay, these are what those job titles are going through. This is what's top of mind. These are the trends. And again, I can get that rep. I can continue to get those repetitions that would usually take me, 30, 40 meetings to get. And then I can combine all of these. I can say, okay, if I've got the trends of what this person's going through, I think I'm starting to get that. I have an idea of our products. How can I provide value? How can I, instead of using product names, how can I turn this into value for those personas? So my friends, if you're struggling with ChatGPT and you're looking for the quick wins, for all my leaders out there, it's that last use case. It's training and it is onboarding. If you're a seller, it is personalization at scale like we've never seen before. So again, go out there, pay the $20 for ChatGPT Pro, and you're gonna see the results.
Okay, so the first question is, how did you get my number?
So a lot of people today are calling cell phones. And I think when it comes to B2B, when everyone is in office, you're calling someone's office phone, you're like, oh, it's fine, I'm calling like an office phone. And now you're getting more and more people having to call cell phones because people just aren't in office, right? So when someone asks you, how did you get my number? I'm gonna give you 2 really quick and nice and easy responses. Okay, number 2 is just be upfront. Just say, hey, look, I called other people at Coca-Cola. This is the number that I was given and they said to reach out. Number 2 is also realize that a lot of times what's happening is you're not actually calling the cell, you're getting redirected. A lot of people that were going into the office every day ended up just getting their phone redirected to their cell phone. And so don't be weird about it. Don't worry about it. And another pro tip I'll give you is don't shy away from leaving voicemails, okay? I don't listen to voicemails, I read voicemails, right? And so if you're cold calling in or you're calling into someone, when you leave me a voicemail, it's just like a text message almost. So don't hesitate to leave a voicemail, reference the email. But when someone says, how'd you get my number? Just be direct, be upfront. It's not that weird in 2023.
3 quick ways to get to 50,000 followers on LinkedIn.
All right, I'm gonna give you 3 very quick ways to grow your followers on LinkedIn. It is one of the easiest, best organic places. For those of you who don't know, if you have under 5,000 followers, LinkedIn automatically will promote your content more than someone with 75,000 followers. So growing an audience on LinkedIn is much easier than a lot of platforms. Number 1 is you have to be proactive, meaning know who you want to engage with. Let's say it's CEOs, VPs. You can max out to 100 connection requests every single week. Max that out. The chances of you just growing virally are very little. Curate your network, right? After you curate the network, connect with 100 people every single time, right? Number 2 is make sure you're putting out consistent content. Once a week is fine. Once every few, 2 or 3 times a week is even better. With ChatGPT, you can get some ideas of what to do, but you need to be focused on content that adds value and makes your readers smarter. Don't pitch. You don't need to pitch and say, oh, this is what I do, etc. I know you're in sales, so all you want to do is pitch, but just put out content on a relatively consistent basis and you're already above, 95% of people that aren't posting anything. And number 3 is interact. Okay, if you have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's really easy. If not, think about those people that you want to book with and then just candidly drop a little comment here, drop a little like here. right? Interact with people. I'm telling you right now, the more that you interact, the more that you will see people come back to your content. So if you want to grow really, really quickly, that's what I did. Connected with a bunch of people, started putting out content, and started interacting with people that had followings.
Great, that was a great answer. Number 3 is why you can't just optimize your sales operations alone without looking at marketing and customer success metrics and vice versa.
So you see a lot of sales organizations where sales kind of is doing their own thing, and they've got marketing over here, marketing's doing their thing, sales is doing their thing, customer success is doing their thing. One of the most consistent issues that I see is what happens is if you're only looking at one part of your revenue organization and you don't have a RevOps team that's looking across it, you might have something that's happening in sales. It's surfacing, but it's actually caused because marketing, there was a lead routing issue, or there's a type of lead that's getting through, and that's why deals aren't closing. So you might think, I need to solve for our proposal process. The reality is you need to go and solve that lead type. It happens all the time with customer success, right? Sales sells a deal. Customer success is trying to triage how we get these people to use it. Well, maybe the actual issue is in step 3 of the sales process, we've got to introduce the customer success team to where people actually use it. So the issue is if you just look in your individual silos, consistently, you will not diagnose the right issue. You will diagnose the issue you can see, but that may not be the issue that's actually causing the issue. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the very first, yes, you were here first, Innovative Seller Show. This show is something I'm very passionate about and excited to bring to all of you on a monthly basis. We're going to continue to innovate. We're going to continue to take your Q&A so we can make sure that you are always staying on top of the latest and greatest trends. Next week, I've got prepping for 2024 because there was too much to put in one episode. So make sure, tune in, like and subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and we'll see you on the next one.